Under the cover of darkness, Jakkar, Elara, Mira, and their assembled team approached the enemy supply depot located on a barren moon orbiting a gas giant in a remote system. The depot, a sprawling complex of storage units and armed patrols, served as a critical logistical hub for their adversaries. The team's shuttle landed quietly in the shadow of a ridge a few kilometers from the depot. Clad in dark tactical gear, they moved out swiftly, each member carrying their specialized equipment. Jakkar led the group, his eyes scanning the horizon, while Elara kept close, her blaster at the ready. Mira, carrying a compact device, whispered, "Drones going up." She activated the small surveillance drones, which buzzed silently into the night sky, providing live feed of the depot's layout and patrol movements back to their wrist screens. 2 guards on the eastern gate, automated turrets covering the main entrance, Mira reported, studying the drone feeds. "I can jam the turret controls, but it'll only give us a small window." "Let's make it count," Jakkar replied. He turned to the group, his voice low and steady. "Elara, you're with me. We'll take the east gate. Mira, you and Rollo's team hit the main entrance as soon as the turrets are down. Everyone knows their roles?" Nods and murmurs of affirmation came from the team, each member focused and ready. The operation kicked off with Mira disabling the turrets, her device emitting a series of beeps before the screens confirmed the turret's deactivation. Simultaneously, Jakkar and Elara, utilizing the distraction, quickly and quietly neutralized the guards at the east gate using non-lethal takedowns. Inside the depot, the atmosphere was tense. Jakkar and Elara moved through the shadows, placing small explosive charges at critical infrastructure points: fuel lines, ammunition storage, and communication arrays. Their movements were precise, a dance choreographed by countless hours of planning and training. Meanwhile, Mira and her team breached the main entrance. A brief firefight erupted as they encountered a squad of enemy guards. Laser fire crisscrossed the dimly lit corridors, the sound of blasts echoing through the halls. The team responded with disciplined bursts, their training evident as they pushed forward. As Jakkar and Elara set the last charge, a sudden alarm blared through the depot. "Time to move," Jakkar shouted, his voice urgent. They sprinted towards the rendezvous point, dodging returning patrols and incoming fire. The charges detonated in a series of controlled explosions, throwing the depot into chaos. Massive fires lit up the night, consuming supplies and crippling the enemy's logistical capabilities. The team regrouped at the extraction point, hearts pounding and breaths heavy. Mira checked everyone over for injuries as they waited for their shuttle. "Everyone accounted for?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "All here," Rollo confirmed, his eyes scanning the horizon for any pursuit. As the shuttle descended, its ramp lowering in a welcome hiss, Jakkar looked over at Elara. Her face, smeared with dirt and sweat, bore an expression of mixed fatigue and satisfaction. "We did it," she breathed out, her eyes meeting Jakkar's. "We really did it." Jakkar nodded, a proud smile breaking through the tension of the night. "We did. Let's get out of here." They boarded the shuttle, the doors closing behind them as it lifted off, leaving the burning depot behind. As they ascended, the team sat in silence, each processing the night's adrenaline and its implications. Tonight was a victory, a significant blow to their enemies, but the war was far from over. Back at Tarsus Outpost after the successful raid on the supply depot, the team gathered in their safe house to decompress and assess the mission. The room was quiet, the only sound the low hum of the station's life support systems and the occasional clink of gear being set down. Despite their victory, a palpable tension lingered in the air. Jakkar was the first to break the silence, his voice a mix of relief and concern. "That went better than I expected, but it was close. Too close. We need to be sharper next time." Mira nodded, her eyes scanning the data pads with the mission's outcomes. "We got what we went for, and more importantly, we've sent a message. But Jakkar's right. They'll be on high alert now." Elara sat apart from the group, her gaze distant. The raid had been her first real taste of direct conflict, the reality of her choices settling heavily on her shoulders. She had trained and planned, but the chaos and danger of actual combat had shaken her more than she cared to admit. Noticing her silence, Jakkar moved to sit beside her. His voice was gentle, a contrast to the commander tone he'd used during the mission. "You did well out there, Elara. Without you, we wouldn't have succeeded." Elara looked at him, her expression conflicted. I know I need to do this, Jakkar. For my family, for my people. But out there, seeing the destruction, the fear, I can't help but wonder if it's worth it, if I'm making the right choices. Jakkar listened, his demeanor understanding. It's okay to have doubts, Elara. It means you're considering the costs, not just barreling ahead without thought. This isn't just a battle for territory. It's a fight for your home, your legacy. It's personal, and it's supposed to be hard. Elara sighed, her eyes meeting his. But how do you deal with it? The weight of it all? I remember why I started, Jakkar replied softly. I remember who I'm fighting for. And I look around at those who've chosen to stand with me, knowing I'm not in this alone. You're not alone, Elara. Their conversation was interrupted by Rollo, who approached with a new sense of urgency. We've intercepted more communications. They're regrouping faster than we anticipated. They know we're here, and they're coming for us. The news steeled Elara's resolve, her moment of doubt giving way to a renewed sense of purpose. She stood, her stance confident. Then let's be ready for them. We strike again, harder this time. We show them that we won't be intimidated. Jakkar nodded, impressed by her determination. We'll start planning at dawn. Tonight, we rest and gather our strength. As the team dispersed to their quarters, Elara stayed behind for a moment, looking out a viewport at the stars. The weight of her destiny was heavy, but Jakkar's words echoed in her mind. She wasn't alone. With a deep breath, she turned away from the window, ready to face whatever came next. The morning after their strategizing session, as the team prepared for another round of planning, an unexpected breach in the outpost security system triggered an urgent gathering in Rollo's command center. Jakkar, Elara, Mira, and Rollo scanned through logs and surveillance feeds, searching for the source of the intrusion. It looks like someone accessed our communications, Mira reported, her expression grave as she pointed to the time-stamped entries. They've been feeding information out for days. Rollo's face hardened, his eyes narrowing. That explains the increased patrols we've seen on the outer sectors. Someone inside is leaking our movements. The group exchanged troubled looks, realizing the implications of having a spy among them. Jakkar took the lead, his voice firm. We need to flush them out now, before any more damage is done. Rollo agreed. I'll set a trap. We'll leak false information about our next move and see who bites. The plan was simple, but effective. They concocted a detailed operation purportedly aiming to strike at another key supply line and monitored the communications relay for any unauthorized access. It didn't take long. Within hours, they caught a break. Unusual activity pinpointing a terminal in a secluded part of the outpost. Armed and alert, Jakkar and Elara headed to the location, finding a young technician named Joran, who appeared too focused on his console to notice their approach. Joran, Jakkar called out, causing the man to jolt in surprise. His eyes darted nervously between Jakkar and Elara as they approached. I was just doing some routine checks, Joran stammered, his voice unsteady. Elara stepped closer, her tone cold. Routine checks don't include sending classified information to our enemies. Caught, Joran's shoulders slumped, and after a moment of silence, he confessed. I didn't have a choice. They have my family. They said they'd hurt them if I didn't help. Sympathy flickered in Elara's eyes, but her voice remained firm. I understand you were under pressure, but you put all our lives at risk. We might be able to help your family, but you need to cooperate. Joran nodded miserably, the relief at being caught palpable. I'll do whatever you ask. I'm sorry. I never wanted anyone here to get hurt. Jakkar and Elara escorted Joran back to Rollo, who listened to the technician's story with a grim expression. We'll look into it, he promised, though the assurance was heavy with the unspoken risks of dealing with hostage situations. After securing Joran in a holding area, the team regrouped to discuss the implications. We have to assume everything's compromised, Rollo said, his voice tinged with frustration. It's back to square one. We tighten security, sweep for any other leaks, and keep our plans close. Elara, reflecting on Joran's desperate situation, added, let's also remember why we're fighting. It's not just for our own stakes, but for those who can't fight for themselves. We need to be better than our enemies. The incident added a new layer of caution to their operations. Trust became more precious, and their strategies more guarded. As they moved forward, the stakes were clearer, and their resolve hardened. This was not just a battle for territory. but a fight for the integrity and safety of all who had joined their cause. In the wake of the security breach, the atmosphere at Tarsus Outpost was charged with a new urgency. Jakkar, Elara, Mira, and Rollo convened in the command center, surrounded by screens displaying maps and data feeds. Their faces were set with determination, each one ready to shift their strategy to not just react, but preemptively strike. Given the leak, we need to accelerate our plans, Jakkar stated, his eyes scanning over the digital maps. We've been reactive for too long. It's time to go on the offensive. Elara nodded in agreement, her expression resolute. We have to show strength. If we strike a decisive blow now, we can disrupt their operations significantly and gain the upper hand. Rollo chimed in, his hands busy manipulating the data on the screen. I've identified several key locations that are critical to their supply chain. Hitting these will cripple their ability to wage a prolonged campaign against us. Mira leaned over the console, pointing to a particular spot on the map. This communication hub here is their linchpin. Taking it out would isolate their eastern fleet. Perfect, Jakkar said, his mind already running through the tactical implications. We'll split into 2 teams. Mira, you lead the strike on the comm hub. Elara, you're with me. We'll take care of the supply points. The plan was set swiftly, each member of the team tasked with preparations. The outpost buzzed with activity as weapons were checked and vehicles were prepped. The sense of anticipation was palpable, each person aware of the stakes. Later, at the rallying point, Jakkar addressed the gathered fighters, a mix of outpost residents and hired mercenaries. Today, we take the fight to them, he proclaimed, his voice echoing in the hangar. We strike hard and fast, not just for survival, but to reclaim what's ours. Let's show them what we're made of. Cheers erupted from the crowd, the energy high as they boarded their ships. Elara, donning her combat gear, felt a surge of adrenaline. Beside her, Jakkar reviewed the mission details one last time. Stay sharp out there, he advised, meeting her eyes. Watch each other's backs. As the ships launched, heading towards their respective targets, Rollo stayed behind at the command center, coordinating the strikes and ready to provide real-time intel. The battle was intense. Mira's team faced stiff resistance at the communication hub, the enemy well aware of its strategic importance. Explosions lit up the night as her team used every trick in their arsenal to breach the defenses. Meanwhile, Jakkar and Elara's team executed a series of hit-and-run attacks on the supply points, each strike meticulously timed to cause maximum disruption. The enemy was caught off guard, their responses sluggish and uncoordinated without their central communications. Back at the command center, Rollo monitored the progress, his face illuminated by the glow of the screens. As reports of success came in, his stern expression broke into a rare smile. By the time the teams returned to the outpost, they had achieved significant victories. The enemy was reeling, their network fragmented. We did more than damage them today, Jakkar said to the group as they debriefed. We showed them we're a force to be reckoned with. We're not just survivors, we're contenders. Elara felt a profound sense of accomplishment and unity. Today was a testament to what we can achieve together, she added, her voice carrying a mix of fatigue and pride. Let's keep this momentum. This is our beginning, not just an end. The day's actions had indeed turned the tide, proving that with the right strategy and unity, even a smaller force could challenge a powerful foe. The battles ahead would be challenging, but for now they savored their victory, their spirits buoyed by the promise of their newfound strength.